because today's topic, as you can see, is about arts and design. So as we all know, the arts and design are getting more and more spotlights, and people are getting more noticed about the importance of them. And also it's becoming more inclusive. It can be in media and production industry, it can be internet industry, and even merged in business and marketing. So I'm Nan from class 2018, majored in interactive media arts. And with great pleasure, we have Julliet Pan and Joshua Fu to discuss the career experiences in arts and design industry. So welcome.
Thank you guys.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
I just want to talk about a little bit about today's talk. It's about 1 hour long, and we will have a Q&A session at the end. So if you have any question, just feel free to type your question on the Q&A panel on the Zoom interface, and we will get them answered at the end. So let's start and maybe introduce yourself a little bit. Let's start with Julliet Pan. And Julliet Pan is from NYU's famous Tisch School of Arts. It's my dream school, actually. And she is a director as well as a producer and the founder of She and Ju Films Productions. So one more thing, she is my mentor. So it's my pleasure to have you here. So Julliet,
the pleasure is mine.
And introduce a little bit about yourself.
Well, hi.
Hi.
So well, I just want to say that I am a Tisch Film TV grad 2004, and being a director, a writer had been my dream, and I'm working on that. I've been very I think I'm very blessed in that sense, doing what I want to do. And I started producing because in the beginning of my career, like no one really want to produce what I want to do. So I thought, okay, I want to direct, I want to write, direct, and make movie happen. Then I have to do everything, I produced. But since then, I think I had opportunities to produce contents for Shanghai Media Group, namely their TV channel, Channel Young, and ICS and Dragon TV for the last 11 years before I moved to LA. So I feel very privileged to be able to work with them and produce some good TV shows.
Ooh.
Yeah.
It's like you kind of have a global experience from the US to China and just going forth. And
yeah,
I'm quite interested, and we will talk about it later. So now let's introduce Joshua. Joshua Fu is actually from NYU Stern. He stepped into arts and design and successfully combined business and creativity. He is also the founder of HOIC Group. So let's welcome Joshua to introduce himself.
Hi guys, good morning. I'm Joshua Fu, and yes, I am from NYU Stern 2003. So back in my days, NYU didn't have as many great opportunities as it does now, crossing schools. So initially, I actually wanted to go to Tisch for acting and film directing, but I was sent to Stern by my parents instead. But actually, so I kind of started off with a mix of the creative and the business side. So I did finance marketing as my major, and I had a literature minor, but I also wanted to do film, do many things. But what was amazing was, of course, after university, I had a career in banking, as most people with finance background was. HSBC, TD Securities, Morgan Evan, pretty much, the typical, Wall Street banking, finance kind of track. But I was able to incorporate all of my passion and love for the arts and entertainment industry by, focusing on the industry, even from an investment perspective. Because, what I realized is, I had a lot of interest in various things, but business actually, again, I want to start by saying that sometimes our parents are actually right. So it was great to have a business education from Stern, which provided a foundation for me to be able to venture into everything I loved. So I started HOIC Group about, I think, almost a decade ago, right towards the end of my finance career, which was, a beginning of, my global journey. I also moved to Shanghai about 9-10 years ago as well. So I used investment as a basis, what I call IP investment basis, and focusing on unique IPs that have, a strong focus in arts and culture. So since then, I have expanded further into working with different countries because there's a major passion for me, being an international, Asian myself, Chinese American with a lot of global background myself. It's very important for me to really connect the nations. So I started working with, Europe, other parts of Asia, spent a lot of time in the Middle East as well, really connecting the countries, of course, also working with China's Belt Road, which is, a fantastic way of bringing the countries together. So now that we're in 2020, I've also ventured into a new phase, a philanthrocapitalist, effort called SPLENDOR Plus, which is really using all of the business skills I have, arts and culture skills I have, and the nation-to-nation work I have to really bring people together through understanding, through really tolerating each other, because we know there's a lot of things going on with all the different countries and the tensions, but it is really through understanding each other's culture and understanding the faces of every nation that we can really get to tolerate, understand, and love each other. So yeah, that's a little summary of my journey so far, and I look forward to today's discussion. Thank you.
Really a long journey about your career path, and you just talk about you do think sometimes learning business is useful.
Mm-hmm.
It seemed to me, because I took a little bit classes in Stern about marketing, and I think some stuff like personal management is really helpful to myself.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, thank you for your introduction. And the first part of the talk I really want to discuss with you is about career and personal choice. And things, although we all come from the fields of arts and design, it seems like we focus on very different fields. So like me is in the internet industry as a UX designer, which has a little bit, just really a little bit about arts discipline in it.
Mm-hmm.
But Julia, you are from production and media area, and Joshua, you emphasize more on the business and you kind of merge business with a lot of arts and creativity. So the first question I want to ask is why you choose the things you are working on. It's is there any important moments to push you towards today? Any story?
Josh, you want to start first? You always have interesting stories.
Sure. I would say that there is more than one interesting story because, I think, everyone who's still in university, it's easier to understand that, because the way we were all brought up with the worldly education structure is that, you have a goal, you have a career you need to focus on, and you need to keep that focused. Especially back in my days, when you have too many interests, as they say, they're like, oh, you're not focused enough. You need to find something you focus on. So as I was saying before, I was sent into studying business. But actually before that, I'm also an artist. I was studying quantum physics before, so I have definitely a lot of interest. Even when I entered NYU, I was like, can I minor in architecture and film and entertainment? They're like, well, no. You can get a specialization in film and entertainment through Stern, but not actually with Tisch. So, yeah, I did not have I would say at the beginning, I was still trying to focus, getting my banking internships and everything else. But at a certain point, it just felt like if you're not enjoying what you're doing, what is the purpose of doing it anyway? So I would say that my transition, it's not just one, because actually I would say that I had many transitions, but I guess going from traditional corporate life into exploring my own, own business, it wasn't really easy because, I started around, my company started around 2009, which was, a financial crisis, globally. And, but for me, that was not the reason why I started. I started because, I felt ready. I felt ready to, focus on what I want to do because I realized, you don't have to choose one or the other. It's actually possible to have both because everything has a underlying business structure if we're talking about foundation of building any industry. So you do need to know the basics of how to run a business, financial calculations and projections, the basics of planning a business. But in the meantime, what makes business great, especially from an emergency acquisition perspective from before, you need that uniqueness. You need something that's beyond what numbers can calculate, beyond what an industry can tell you to be. You need that, well, je ne sais quoi, right? You need that something that is truly, sets you apart. And that is what I chose to focus on, that uniqueness. We call it IP value, but what it really is, it's something that's akin to having a soul, because I truly believe that you have to do everything in love, and everything you do, it has to be something you love. If you don't love what you do, there is a point at which you will break down. And it doesn't have to be a failure. It just has to be to the point that, there's only that much mechanically operating yourself that you can do, that you just get tired of anything. And it's nothing, that satisfaction that you need in your soul is nothing that, a job, success and money can bring. It really is something that quenches what you want to do. So for me, it has always been arts and culture, because I grew up all around the world. Literally, like my family is like the human United Nations. So, like for me, a part of, understanding and, seeing different cultures has always been my focus. So as I started, my own company and also started my journey around the world with a lot of focus in Asia, it really started my exploration. And I would say that, well, I have many stories to tell. Obviously, we don't have time for that today. But what I wanted to say that, through my exploration, as I always tell my mentees at NYU's as well, it's always my failures that have really brought me closer to where I want to be. Because it's something that I learned is like, unless you know everything, which nobody does, except God, you don't know anything. So every opportunity, every place you go to, every opportunity you go into, you need that humble approach. You also need to truly explore. But what drives you really is that love you have for, what you want to achieve. So, and I think for the arts and design industry specifically, you really need that love in there, because you can't just wing it. You can't just do it because somebody else tells you to, because it all hinges on the uniqueness that each person, each culture, and together, when you have cultures, nation represent. So yeah, I guess my whole point is, yeah, it really is through trial and error that I advanced all the way. And it's about exploring myself and also learning from falling down. Yeah.
So I echoed a lot, because to be a Chinese students, we actually influenced by our parents a lot. And for example, my parents, they also try to introduce me to the business part to major. But actually, I just said, no, I don't want to major. I really want to major in interactive media arts. So I kind of persuade them. But yeah, a lot of people, a lot of students from my friends, they chose business. A big part of the reason is that their parents told them to. It seems like the business is a really a right career. So yeah. And one more thing you're talking about is about failure, and you fail and you kind of grow up and you start again.
Yeah.
Of course, your love. It's love is pushes to the right path at the end. But actually, it's a kind of 15-year-long journey towards today. Wow. So how about Juliet? Your path?
My path. I think my. Go ahead. What's your question?
Your production and media studio is because at your time, not many people do this kind of things. So why you started?
Absolutely. Yeah. First off, my story is not as dramatic and interesting as Josh. So my career story is very linear, but it's not because, I have agenda. I didn't, to be honest, I always felt I loved visual. I loved expression, but I also know that I'm not a material to be cut as an artist. I mean, the actor, So therefore I know I'm the best suited for behind the camera person. So that I know from the beginning, I didn't even try to pursue an actor's career, but I love that film, TV expression, I also love literature. So then I applied to NYU because NYU Tisch is one of the best in the world, So one thing I learned, you have to aim high. I didn't know if I could get in or not, but I was very lucky I got in. So after of course, you know, my years in New York and the experience was amazing and remarkable, and a lot of pain as well, because, you know, we have to struggle to get, you know, the resources that we needed that we didn't have as students. You know, I remember in one of my short films, I designed to do a 360-degree dolly shot. You know, where do we have dolly? Of course, we didn't have money. We had barely, you know, the allocated camera and a film to use. So I sat on an office chair with wheels and outdoor. So I told my friend to push the chair. So people saw me on the street, you know, sit on a chair. I was carrying a camera, a film camera, and then my friend was pushing the office chair around, you know, around the actor. That's so funny. So, but it's a pain and joy at the same time. But I never in a moment thought, you know, it's too much to handle, too little resources, you know. As a student, you know, I thought that everything is creativity. I mean, inside and outside the production, you know, in front of the camera or behind, like sitting on a chair to pretend it's a dolly shot, or it's a creativity, you know, and some other stories. So, but anyways, after I graduate from NYU, actually I went back to Singapore first. So the first thing, I never thought about anything else. I just thought, you know, I only want to do production. It's just weird. I was fanatic. I want to do production. I love it. So I was very lucky. A production company hired me with a very low salary at that time. And at that time they asked me, can you write a copyright for TV commercials? That time, 30 seconds TV commercial shot on 35mm. I was like, I never done it, but I would do it. I was very bold. I think, look back, you know, if I have any success at all in my career, is two things: my passion and my boldness. I was like, yeah, I'll do it. You know? So I wrote a copyright, and then they loved them. The client had a meeting. That was a chain beauty spa, a salon, you know. So the client loved it. They said, there's a female owner. She says, oh, this is the first time I saw a commercial that is very, how did she put it? Like a very female, I forgot the exact word she used. She says like something very fresh, refreshing, very new, and then very feminine. I didn't mind to her use the word feminine, because I never want to pretend to be a male in that industry sitting on the director's chair. So I'm in fact very, very happy that she embraced my feminine side of me as a director, as a yeah. So we produced that, and then produced that TV commercial, and so I was very grateful that someone gave me an opportunity to explore. And then, but I worked there for a while. Then I realized that the TV commercial is great, but it's not all I want to do, you know, to express myself as a filmmaker. And when I moved back to Shanghai, we in order to make a living, you know, I still was starting to do with TV commercials. But at that time, I started to write scripts, also planning for TV shows and stuff. But at that time, really, you know, nobody in Shanghai I didn't know many people at all. You know, I wasn't in the industry in Shanghai. I left Shanghai when I was at a younger age. So so I just kept knocking on doors, you know, asking, hey, you know, I have this idea, you know, anybody is interested to produce or what? And finally, a friend of mine introduced me to a producer in a Channel Yang, actually, TV station, whom I'm always in debt to, grateful, you know. She looked at the works I've done before, TV commercials and some other things, and also the proposal I gave her. She says, that sounds really interesting, she said, you know, and but she said, this idea is a little too westernized, too new to the Chinese audience. However, would you like to produce for our TV channel our regular programs? I was like, of course, yes, you know, it's a great opportunity. So that's the second moment I remember. It's very important to me in my career that I jump on opportunities, I grab it, you know, and I have the confidence that I'll do whatever I can to make it happen and to make it great, you know. So since then, you know, I mean, and also throughout my years of production career, I mean, of course, I formed my own company because then I have more freedom to do the projects, you know, I want to do, and then I'm doing. So I feel everything we do in our team, in our company, and myself, that we have one goal, that do the very best we can, you know, really push to the end, you know. We didn't care about time. A lot of us, not just me, my team members, my staff, my team member, we work many overnights. Like I remember a few of my birthday, I woke up on my couch in my office, you know, because I work at overnight and rest for a few hours. And then my assistant comes in, hey, happy birthday. I was like, what, really? You know, so that, but not just me, many of our team members too. So since then, we're able to produce TV shows like The Amazing Race. That is something I'm proud of. Along with my team, we have, you know, a big crew. We worked with ICS, you know, that's season 2. That season we won Asia TV Awards and some other TV awards in the US, you know, we beat Australian Amazing Race, you know, so to win that award. So what I'm trying to say is I honestly didn't have a very clear planning, you know, on which step to go and then which step, but all I know is I'm passionate. I want to do production. And then the other thing is when I do it, I do give 110% of my effort, you know, and then most time, I would say when that happens, most times the result won't be too bad, unless like someone is totally untalented, you know. But again, you know, that's that. So here, actually, you know, I do have a quote from 2 people, you know, one is Al Pacino. Like I think G has a slide here. Al Pacino, the very famous American actor, Al Pacino. So what he said is that forget a career, do the work. If you feel what you're doing is online, and then you're going someplace, and you have a vision, and then you stay with it, eventually things will happen. So when I read this quote, I thought, this is exactly how my career path is. You know, it's like, you know, I just had the passion, you know, I know what I want to do, which is be a writer, director. And then along the way, I became a producer too, because I want to make things happen. And then just that, you know, so I thought, wow, you know, I echoed with his quote a lot, you know, with my personal experience. And the other quote I really want to give is the very great Aristotle, the philosopher Aristotle. He says, pleasure in the job puts perfection in the work. So you have to enjoy what you do. You really have to feel not sleeping is fun. Carrying heavy cameras, moving around, or sit on an office chair, you know, on the street is fun. So that would probably eventually lead to the perfection in the work. So that's, yeah, basically that's my journey of my career.
You really like, you really devote yourself, like Steve Jobs, right? He kind of devote himself to the Apple's products and be very perfectionism. And it's because he's passionate on beauty and passionate on like combined arts and design. And now we have the Apple as the like biggest branding and technology company in the world.
Absolutely. I'm sure he enjoys every moment when he works.
And he, like, I really admire him. Another thing is, I really admire and appreciate your boldness, because same thing, like similar things happening on me. You said you took the challenge and tried very hard when the Think Up company gave you the challenge, right? And I think a lot of people, they think, oh, I'm not prepared enough, so I won't take this challenge, or I don't even try. But Joshua, you have just said, like, success is from failures. So as long as we try, and maybe we fail, but we can grow up and we can take the challenge again and we can try it again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so just take the challenge, and boldness is like two things I can learn from you. And I echoed a lot.
That's great.
Yeah, and one more thing is aim high. That's true. Yeah, because
Yeah.
when I like come to graduation, I start to apply for companies, right? And to be honest, when I was sophomore, I think, or freshman, I just think, oh, I can just go to a startup or go to a like small studio company to start my career. I don't even know career. I just know to have a job, actually.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the junior and in the like final year of my undergraduate years, I think, oh, I need to aim high. I need to have a high goal.
Mm-hmm.
So then I applied for big companies like Alibaba, like Tencent, and like Huawei. So gratefully, I stepped into Huawei and started my UX designer career path. So yeah, have a big
Congratulations, you did really well.
Thank you. So you have, like, both of you have just talked about like your kind of year-long path, finding your passion and practice your passion into the reality. So any like recent updates, recent projects, or any new plan in 2020? We all know there is a coronavirus 19 here.
Right. So do you want to start, Julliet?
You start.
Okay, yeah, this is definitely a special year, 2020, a new era we're in. So I'm gonna delay to talk about the obvious in a second. But as I was saying that, you know, my focus now is HOIC Group has transitioned into SPLENDOR Plus, which really, you know, is a philanthrocapitalist focus. With philanthrocapitalism is a combination of philanthropy and business. So not only, you know, doing charitable work and, you know, bringing the funding and the necessary, you know, help to all the, you know, the issue that's needed, but it's also actively creating the results. And you know, for me, actively doing everything is always part of my, you know, part of who I am. So I would say that, you know, that is my focus, you know, for the foreseeable future, because I think it's more than ever now, you know, given the 2020, given what's been going on with the COVID-19 virus globally, you know, I think this is something we realize that, you know, we are all people, you know, we are all people. And it's something that doesn't just influence a country, a city, a group of people. It's a human issue. And I think more so than the virus itself, the biggest problem globally now is fear and the lack of unity between people. I think, you know, like, especially since we're talking about the arts and, you know, the design, and I would like to include the media entertainment industry when it comes to that, there's too much fear going on. And, you know, instead of uniting, there's a lot of people who are just acting out of their insecurities. Again, that's understandable because we're humans and humanity have lots of insecurities. We have a lot of fears because we don't know anything. So, but given that, you know, I think it's more than ever that we need to truly get together and try to understand each other and tolerate each other, you know, not tolerate the fact that, okay, you're annoying, but I'll give you some time. Not that, but it's more that I try to understand that underneath, we're all human. You know, our cultures are different. We are all different. In fact, I would say not a single person is the same. So this is a linkage back to what we we're talking about before. I never had someone I see as an idol or somebody I can follow, because no one, I don't feel like I'm the same as anybody. And this is the same I would say to, you know, everyone else, younger or, you know, a slightly older generation. I think the world is made, we are made each to be very unique. You know, not a single person is exactly the same. Yes, we share race, we share gender, we share, you know, culture, we share history, but every single person is unique in that aspect. So this is why I think more than just understanding culture, which is, you know, a behavior of a group of people, it's understanding people. So I think, you know, so this is why my focus right now really is through all the years of working on arts and culture and, you know, the so-called cultural exchange of different countries, because normally when you see cultural exchange, it's really a presentation on each side, but true exchange is really getting to know another culture, getting to know other people's life and seeing and empathetically understanding from the other perspective. And it is the difference that makes us all interesting. So, and that is something that we celebrate together. So me being Chinese American, I have, more than, well, both and more than that heritage, but part of what makes America great is the combination of all the different people from around the world that comes together as one. And I think for China, what's very interesting, I was just having that conversation a few days ago with a good friend that, China, especially Shanghai, to me is like the retro-futuristic combination of the East and West, many aspects of the West. And I think that is the future of the world. Really, like no country can just be itself, because the only way we can survive and whatever natural disaster or what's facing us is by uniting together in love, not in like agenda or in need or anything else. It really is coming together. And going back to the topic of love I was talking about, you need to not only do what you love, but you also need to treat people out of love too, with joy and with peace, with love. That's the only way that you can have a good day. Because if you're not in a good mood and you're not in a good day, trust me, nothing you do will go well. So we've all been in, well, just some industries are more toxic than others, especially, I would say, a few years back. But, everyone is excited to explore their career. People want to achieve something, but ambitious doesn't mean ruthless. And that's something that, we all see. And going back to the topic of the COVID-19 right now, I think something like this, a major natural disaster, really proved to us, nothing we do really mean anything. Nothing's our own career success, financial success really mean anything. When a natural disaster hit, it really comes down to who are you and what you're all about. And what are the relations you've created, the meaningful relations you've created. We're socially isolated right now, right? Well, Shanghai is doing a little bit better than a lot of other. China is the front runner when it comes to this, but still in general, there's a lot of social separations right now. But the more than that, I see that, even for example, we're on a Zoom video call right now, but people are getting closer than before. I think this yearning for really try to connect with people is becoming stronger than ever. So that's why I think, despite what has been happening this year, I see it as a blessing in disguise. And I think greater things will come, because it will, when that pause button is unpaused and the play button goes, I feel like everything will be moving forward in a new way. And we're going to be in a new normal. Hopefully everyone has taken the opportunity to really think about what they really want in life. What legacy is it really about? This is something I mentioned before, I really don't think, because traditionally people are like, oh, in a grim way, like, what would you want to say on your tombstone? But what I always say is, who cares what you leave behind? It's when you're alive, who are you and what are you experiencing and what are you enjoying? Because after all, this experience in the world, this experience is once in a lifetime for all of us too. So it's about what you enjoy and experience here. So in summary, pretty much, my goal from this new era is to really bring together the uniqueness of people, spotlighting in the arts and cultural way, whether it's the performing arts, whether it's through literature, whether it's through scientific innovation, because I see science as another level of creativity that people can incorporate. It is not there to replace people. It is there to enable people to be even more creative. And back to something Julliet mentioned before, I don't think creativity is only limited to the arts and design industry. Everything you do needs to be creative, because every approach you take, that creativity is your own unique touch and approach to something. So there's no such thing as creative people and business people. There is just one thing as people. So yeah, I look forward to really just spotlighting, everyone's creativity, every culture's creativity, and just celebrate that, the love and joy people have, instead of focusing on, the negative part. So
Wow.
Looking forward to the rest of the 2020.
Yeah. And you have just said, like, emphasize more on the uniqueness of people, and actually the design and arts are in our life, basically.
Yes.
And the UX designer is an experience designer. There are two books. One is Everyday's Design, and the other is Everyone Can Be a Designer. So I pretty much agree with you, because everyone can be a designer as long as they have like some insights on their lives. They notice, oh, what they need and what could be better, and they can make some change, and there is a new product coming.
Right.
And our greatest like creativity is come from the little notice in daily lives.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing is you're talking about like the uniqueness. I couldn't agree more, because you like as a normal people, like as a young like employee, we need to find our competitive, right? And actually, if we copy someone's career path exactly, we lose our competitive and advantage. We need to find our like our own spotlight and to like give ourselves a place in our department or company. But I'm curious, like you just said, you will emphasize more on the like people's uniqueness. Is there like any specific example in your business, and will you like emphasize more like in the business in Shanghai or in China, like any plan?
Well, actually, we have actually our first event of 2020 there. We're hoping to roll out, in mid-June. So, but yeah, the plan is to really like celebrate, actually celebrate all the love that happened during the COVID-19 period, celebrate humanity's conquering something that we never experienced before. And on top of that, and really just delve into the different cultures, especially, there's a lot of misunderstanding of certain cultures in the world. So of course, we're doing that in Shanghai first, but hoping to doing it all around the world too. But in Shanghai, part of, like being, heritage of Shanghainese. So like, we know that, like China actually, because something that a lot of things about each culture you don't know unless you really try to try to understand. For example, like I was talking to Julliet about it before, like health is actually the #1 focus of Chinese people everywhere. Like on social media, the trending topic is always something health related, whether it's cooking, whether it's supplements, whether it's like methods, and all the things our parents forward to us is always like, oh, don't do this, do that for health purposes. It's always that, right? So, but it's something that going all the way back to Ben Cao Gangwu, like the initial book on herbal Chinese medicine and everything else. So it's a very rich history that people actually don't know before. In the meantime, you also have, certain things that we need to avoid. The government is doing a good job right now by, taking out some of the wildlife trade and things like that. But it is also part of a medicinal history of Chinese medicine. So, but one of the topics we're going to explore really is, like what part of culture should we hold back and what part of culture should we fast forward into the new era? Because every culture has that, the Nordic region has their, like ocean life massacre for the, for their adulthood experience. We don't, because what I realize is like every culture has its good and its bad, because it's actually a growth. It's not just a growth of people, it's a growth of a collection of people. A nation is a collective of people. That, of course, just like I was saying, success comes from trial and error. So there's a lot of trial and error of each nation and each group of people. So part of that is the celebration, things that don't really are not relevant to the current thing, we leave that behind. Things that are just really amazing and exemplary for each nation, we should move that forward. And most importantly, bring that together with each nation. And the special part, I would say that we have a major focus on technology and education, for sure, because I think, as we're saying, technology has such a major role to play, in terms of what everyone can do in the future. And we're not just looking at like AI driving cars or anything else. We're looking at something that's beyond that. What does it mean to us in our daily life? What does it mean to us in our creative artistic expression? And as you were saying before, I was saying creative, everyone has a creativity in them. And design, everyone can design, and we call that personalizing. You personalize things in your life, you personalize your life yourself, so all of that is part of what technology can bring. And education, of course, since this is an NYU conference to begin with, education is so important. I think at every level, not just the K-12 and university, but all in our lives, education is very important, especially given this current situation. A lot of people are doing online studying and everything, but it's really about how we curate the best of what we can be presented to the world. And, there's always this talk about Eastern studies, Western studies, what each culture brings. Chinese people are good at math and all these stereotypes you keep hearing. But it's actually not true because again, each of us are very different. But there is a truth to the fact that each education system of different cultures, different countries has its focus. So part of what we want to explore is also the best of each education system and what it should highlight. And because again, to the futures, we want to bring the best of what humanity has to offer and bring that forward into the new 2020, this new era. Nothing behind, because this opportunity right now is to really find the best and bring it forward and filter out things that needs to be left behind. So what we truly want to do this year is to really start with this global conversation, getting everyone involved with the industries, because we also know that for every industry, there's a challenge right now. Everyone needs to think about, even someone as big as Disney need to think about, like what is next? How do they, because you can't prevent everything. There's no such thing as a perfect plan, perfect contingency plan. You don't have that. So it really is a go. You go and as you go, you see how everything rolls out. So yeah, and a part of what I really loved about, working with the Interactive Media and Arts program at NYU and having worked with a lot of mentees is the fact that there's so many creative people. I think I've given this example before when we have our individual conversations, but I still remember this year's, mentor-mentee dinner. And there was a very unique young lady who started saying that, she's into math, she's into technology. A lot of people think that, oh, that's a little dry, but no. So I asked her further, yes, you are allowed to love what you love, because not everyone loves, the hyper passionate thing, because numbers to some people, it could be boring, to other people, it could be like music, So, but what's interesting is she said, she's actually interested in exploring AI and robotics, and she wants to use AI to, study Chinese poetry and have, an AI robot analyze and write Chinese poetry. So that's some of the most creative things I've ever heard, and I think that's what we really look forward to bring out, encouraging and supporting people with these unique point of view, not only the overall industry and the change of the industry, but supporting the unique people that's part of all of that. So yeah.
Well, I wish I could be in your event in June in Shanghai, right?
Yeah. Yes, I will share more with you guys for sure. Yeah.
So Julliet, do you have anything to share with us about your recent projects or planning in 2020?
Well, it's very weird. Entering into 2020, the beginning of the year, I mean, at least from the US point, everything's looking great in terms of Hollywood production. It's flourishing in all streaming services, Hulu, Netflix, Amazon, everything is great. They're in need of large and a good quantity and a good quality of TV shows or TV movies. So and the show I had been developing and then still am is called The Lane. It's when Josh talked about East and West. This is specifically about the culture East and West, about foreign expats living in Shanghai, their coexistence with Chinese people here locally, their conflicts, laughters and struggles in love, career, and friendship, and many other things. So I thought the reason I had such a passion for this project is because being a quite international person, lived in Shanghai, in Singapore, in New York, now in LA, I felt, we humans together have so much similarities, but also differences. And then had we know and understand each other better, then the differences can be an advantage versus, people antagonizing each other because of differences, So I was, so I'm planning to, the show, of course, has to be entertaining because it's in the entertainment industry. I'm not writing a book or anything, but through the laughters and tears, I want the people in the world, whether it's from the East or the West, to understand each other. No big deal. We're different from each other, but we're human. We have our basic humanity of love, fear, all of that, existential crisis at times, but we should care for each other versus, eliminate or antagonize each other. Especially, so that's the purpose of the core of my project, and also being a filmmaker, I'll definitely want to make it entertaining, interesting. So in the beginning of the 2020, actually, my project has a great, how do I say, prospect I was circled in some producers here that in Hollywood. They're very, very interested. Because they're as filmmakers themselves, that they are immensely interested in humanity. They thought, from those angles that enabled the American, because I plan to broadcast streaming on North America first, so they thought the American audience will be very interested to understand something happened here in the East. But unfortunately, so life is not always planned as, unfold as you planned. Obviously, everything take a halt, everything stopped, of course. And unfortunately, I'm not intending to talk anything about the politics, but it's the truth, because of the COVID-19, the relationships between the East and West becomes worse. It's become, frosting, instead of warming up, right? So that, to me, I was, for a little bit, I was like a little disappointed, with the situation happened. But then very quickly, I spend a lot of time, because I have all the time. I'm self-quarantining still, in LA. So I do a lot of self-reflection, on things, First off, when things take a pause, doesn't mean it's a perpetual eternity, it will happen back online. As long as the things you're doing is meaningful, it has value, So I thought I shouldn't be discouraged, So the other thing is, because of self-reflection, I also feel like I discovered, writing alone itself can be a great joy. Instead of just, production is my first love, self, I love to be on set, but the writing itself gives you so much freedom, and you can do, so I'm now, besides, keep writing the episodes of Dylan, I also write feature script related to COVID life in the world, it's a feature film that I started to write. So then I realized that we can be adaptable as, human beings, and in terms of career or your potential or your interest, there is no fixed ways. If you're willing to be flexible and to be adaptable, and you'll find silver linings, in a very difficult situations. So basically, honestly, do I know when those projects would start again and then, will be happening? I don't know the exact time, but I know it will happen. If it's not this year, it will be next year, hopefully. But in the meantime, I just feel more calm. I know that if it's not in a production, I'm writing, and I'm in my own world. When you start to write, it's the world you create. You have all the power to make things happen, in your writing. So I think it's great. But having that said, I want to be honest that it doesn't mean that COVID-19 doesn't affect our lives, doesn't affect my life. And when all of us, when we are in doubts and feel depressed, it's all normal. So when Josh talked about love, I think that is the most important element in our lives right now, that we have to have self-love. We should give ourselves some pat on the shoulder, say, hey, you're getting through this, you're hanging on there, you're doing great, because it's not the easiest thing, especially when people are quarantined alone, in an apartment for days and weeks and months. So that's that. And then the love for each other, like, I really enjoy the Zoom, meeting. And as I said, ever since I do that, I got a lot of invitation from friends, colleagues, so let's do Zoom meetings, Zoom happy hour, Zoom dance, all of this, you know, really, I feel that love for each other is what it's like a very potent potion
And
for all of us.
especially
Instead of
when we need to
right,
we need to connect more.
yeah, we need to connect more. You know, we need to understand each other more, and then we need to sometimes put differences aside and embrace each other rather than against each other. I feel, you know. So this is what I learned from this catastrophe, you know, and then naturally, yeah, you know, I that's how I feel, you know. So basically to adapt, to accept, and then to discover your potentials, other potentials. Yeah. So yeah, in short, you know, now like I'm still developing this TV show, but in the meantime, this COVID catastrophe, like when I read news, a lot of news stories about Chinese stories, and now things happen in the US, New York, or weeks ago in Italy, actually really inspired me a lot, wanting to tell those stories, you know. So that's, yeah, the project, the writing project, because this is, at this point, is that all I can do is write, and which I find it's great.
Oh, I think your project is great and makes me think about the Lady Gaga's recent like online music show.
She's our alumni.
Oh yeah,
Lady
yeah.
Gaga is from NYU. Yeah, she's great.
Oh, she's great. Like I think like especially this time unifying people using arts, and also like we have Zoom party or Zoom like happy hour because of
Yeah,
and technology.
yeah.
It's really this time like people can spark their creativity and to like really design, like as you have said, everyone can be a designer, to design some needs, to design some products, and to unify people, and
Definitely.
let people love each other more. And I think one of the most great things what you have told me is to have a global insight, is to recognize the difference but accept it, and to understand people so that we can love each other. Yeah. So
that's, yeah.
I think it can be the end of our talk, but we will have the Q&A session. So every participant, if you have any question, again, you can type your question on the Q&A panel and we will get them answered. So let's say, let me see. There is a participant said, wow, that's a question for Julliet. So she said, hi, Julliet, thank you for sharing with us. I definitely resonate with the pushing chair part. I studied in Tisch for a year and I'm thinking about applying to their film grad, but I have hesitation because of career path later. I was worried that since US and China's film and TV industry are so different, will what I learned in Tisch apply in China? Also, coming back to China without knowing anyone or having any connection, how can one get into the business? I think it's a great question for Julliet.
Right. So she or he, it's
I don't know.
Girl. Oh, okay, okay. So the question is about if his knowledge will be relatable in China. Yeah. The answer is definitely yes, because there's no difference in terms of production making, like storytelling, whether you tell the story in Chinese or in English. There's no difference. It's about the human stories. Whether you tell a Chinese story or American story, quintessentially no difference, but there's differences in cultural expressions. The differences in expression, not in the essential core of humanity, you know. So I would say yes, that it's applicable, and that's that. Not knowing anybody, how it is, I literally came back and literally not knowing anybody. So you can apply for internships, you know, like you just blast companies with your resume and then what you want to do, what's your skill sets and strength and what you want to do. And my advice is not every opportunity of internship is exactly what you wanted. If this is the best you can have, grab it anyways, because you never know what this opportunity lead to. Let me give you an example of my mentee, Gabriella. She probably today, she signed up into the panel too. Gabriella, she was also in IMA major. Now she graduated. She actually went further on to Columbia University, studied technology management. So basically, you know, she, like you, Nan, that she has both interest in arts, design, as well as technology. And then she wants to embrace both sides of her talent and interest, and then comes out from Columbia, and then she'll decide what to do, right? So when she was in New York, when she was in Shanghai, first, you know, intern, be my mentee, she asked me if I could introduce her to internship. So even though I've left Shanghai to the US, but I still have a lot of colleagues, you know, I work with different companies. So one of the companies actually accepted her as a intern. And then she told me she learned a lot, you know, through that job. And even though today she's not in film and TV, but she learned a lot then, you know. So when she went to New York in her, I think, sophomore year, and then she again asked me that, can you find me an internship in New York? You know? So I happened know some production companies there. So she went to intern with one of the production companies, and she grasped the opportunity. It's not paid, but she's on time every time, and then she did a lot of work, script readings and writing comments. So my friend, who's the owner of the company, and they're really happy with her job. So they took her to Cannes Film Festival.
Wow.
To do some, I don't remember details. She was really excited. She actually, you know, because we're still in touch with each other quite frequently, you know. And then she said, I learned so much from those great people and all of that. And then she now not only knows about the production, how to, you know, on the production side, but also in distribution, because that's what Cannes Film Festival is. So what I'm trying to say, even though that her current decision is not to be a film TV producer at this point, you never know, in the future she might decide to come back, you know, in this industry. So she actually just jumped into any opportunity was offered to her and then did the best she could, you know, and then one thing lead to another. So my advice to this alumni is that just, yeah, apply for internship, grab the best opportunity you could have, and then do the best you can, not to worry about long hours, whether paid, not paid, because that's not of your concern at that moment, because good things will come if you give the best of yourself. That's my advice.
Yeah, thank you, Juliet. And to me, I also think internship is a great chance to let you have a knowledge about the industry, what's really happening in the industry, and to build the connection.
Yeah.
I think we only have time to answer one more question. Is that Maya Wang has asked, how do you all deal with imposter insecurity when you first started your career? So maybe Joshua, you want to start first?
Sure. Actually, this is a question that linked to some of the other questions I've seen. There's another question somebody asked regarding how do you know you have the talent to pursue what you're passionate about? I think, you know, insecurity, it's something that we all have. And just because you love an industry doesn't mean you have a specific aspect of a talent. as I was saying before, everyone is unique, and every industry, it's not just one phase. For example, the film industry, it's not just acting. I mean, Julliet just talked about how much she loved doing production and everything else before, right? So I think there's so many aspects to every industry and every topic that people love. So it's not about that whether you have the talent for that the most, I would say, front stage of everything. It's about what you love. As the example I gave before, you know, the young lady who was into math, but she wants to do poetry with AI and robotics. I mean, there's so many different aspects. So I would say that just know that everybody is insecure when they step into something new. Not just new students, even us nowadays, when we embark on something new or just, you know, just something we don't know about, of course there's insecurity, but don't let the fear and insecurity speak to you. Instead, focus on what you are facing. So I think ask more questions, explore more. If you love something, if you want to do better, see if there's another person that you can discuss with, you know, someone who has experience or even share a similar insecurity. Or, you know, you can look at all the, you know, the lessons, the online resources that are available, or even explore classes. But I would say that just focus on that, think about the insecurity and as an opportunity to expand more, to learn more about yourself than just focusing on the fear. So I say that, yeah, everyone goes through that. Just relax and use that opportunity to seek more, expand yourself. Because you never know how far you want to go and what your passion really blooms into, right? So just feed it day by day, and don't try to think too far ahead, I would say, yeah.
Julliet, do you want to
Well,
share?
yeah, first of all, I want to tell you, insecurity is always there no matter how successful you are one day. You know, I've met a lot of very successful Hollywood people, but they still have their insecurities when it comes to their work, you know, works. But that's very normal. And also, I think the moment you totally lose the sense of insecurity, it's a problem because you're too arrogant. You think whatever you do is the best, the biggest, the most successful, and then you stop growing, and also you probably close your eyes and ears not to learn anymore, you know. So I think insecurity is not a bad thing, but how to deal with it. I think first we all have to know whatever you do, there's always room to be improved, to be honest, you know. So knowing that, and then you don't feel that weird when people give you some quote unquote negative feedbacks. Oh, this can be improved, that can be better. Of course, you know, like there will never be an end to achieve, you know, total excellence, you know. So don't feel weird when people give you some feedbacks that you can improve. You should be appreciative. Secondly, that we all have that tendency that we don't want to share our works to people because we're insecure, you know. But what if people say, oh, you know, it sucks, you know, it's not. But honestly, you tell yourself, I did it. At least I did it, you know. That's the first step, you know, that you have to tell yourself, good job, you did it, you know. Next step is, how do I do better? So that way you don't feel terrible, you know, when people give you a bit of feedback that didn't sound like totally positive, you know, which happens all the time, especially in art and creativity, you know, because it's not black and white. Everybody has their own opinion, and then everybody entitles an opinion. So that, you know, you take it and then you use it to improve, but you don't have to feel that you're not doing the right thing. So that's that. And one more thing I just want to say, I did some TV interview for ICS at that time in Hollywood to the successful people. And then one person who told me, his name is Todd Tucker. He is a very, very famous celebrity special effects makeup artist, you know, like he worked with Robin Williams, Tom Cruise, Benjamin Brad Pitt. How can I forget that? Brad Pitt, all these people. So he told me the same thing. He said, you have to be thick-skinned. When I interviewed him at the time of thick skin, we Chinese hate thick-skinned people, you know. But really, now I understand what does it mean? Because you will be rejected many times.
Mm.
And you have to have the strength to say, okay, that only makes me do better. So you will have no reason, you cannot reject me in future. So probably we should adopt this Hollywood thick skin theory, you know, not to be, the meaning of thick skin is not to be defeated by rejections.
Yeah.
So that ties in the insecurity, because we feel insecure, we're afraid to be rejected, but knowing that we will be rejected one way or another in our lives, in our journey, and then that can only push us, prepare us to go further and then higher and better, then we'll probably feel better and then lose that insecurity. That's my
and open to opportunities and advice.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Yeah.
And to me, it's like there are always anxiety and insecurity on my job when I first stepped into the UX design industry. And what I do is, as Julliet have said, just to have a thick skin and just to open to the failures and never stop learning. Just Joshua, you have said there are a lot of online like learning materials. Yeah, that the technology and the science that give us the opportunity to learn more and to put the knowledge just there. You just Google it or Baidu it, and you will get it. Yeah, to me is that admit the security and admit that you have the anxiety and start learning and start talk to people and to know what's my advantage and to know what's my disadvantage and just to keep trying.
Yeah.
That's my way. So thank you.
Great.
Thank you. I think it's our today's talk about the career in art and design industry. And thank you for Julliet and Joshua to coming to our talk. And also
thank you very much.
Thank you every participant being here to listening to us, sharing our experiences. So thank you. And
thank you.
Thank you guys.
Take care.
Take care.
Also, thank you CDC for holding the event.
Yes, thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
Bye. Take care.
Take care.